Okay, so if you're on Redshift 2.6, then you need to do the AUVs inside of output and then AUV, and then you can set AUVs in here. So AUVs are essentially these things that I mentioned here. So parts of your render, so the diffuse and whatever. So we can set it in here. But if you're on Redshift 3, I recommend using this one, Redshift AUVs. This actually got included because I gave a suggestion on the forum and then they included it like 2 weeks later. So the Redshift devs are really on point when it comes to suggestions. So that's really cool. And this is super useful because what we can do, so this only applies if you're on Redshift 3. So if you're using the demo from 2.6, you cannot do that. And then you just need to follow along inside the output here and just set them on there. So just so you know that's a difference inside of the 3 and the other one. All right, so what we can do here is we can drag this AUV in here and then we'll grab these AUVs from this thing. So let's call this AUV, let's call it main because we might use this in more things and maybe we can color code these so they're sort of belong together. All right, so let's set up some AUVs. I actually have a preset for AUVs. So you can go that and then you can have a look at it. Well, we can do it manually for now. So let's set up all the AUVs that we want. So what do we want? We want diffuse lighting because that's, of course, diffuse lighting. You always want that. What do we want more? We want reflections because the light is reflecting on our ground. What do you want? We want global illumination, of course, because, I mean, we got quite a lot of GI going on, reflection. So we don't really have any refraction, but I mean, we might as well include it. But there's just a whole, but like I have a preset, like I mentioned, and that includes all of these, and that should also be with your downloads, by the way, the presets. Well, not the down, but it's in the VFX folder structure thing that I mentioned before. So you can get those presets. Anyway. So yeah, global illumination. We want that. Let's say specular. Where is it? Specular lighting. Specular. So that's going to be. We don't really have that much specularity going on, but a little bit where the light is going on. So we want specular. What else do we want? We want Z-depth. So Z-depth is a black and white pass, and I have it over here. So it gives you depth information. So you can use that to, for example, add some extra fog, or you can use it to, for example, blur stuff. So that's why it's generally used to do depth of field. And you can see it comes here super wide. You don't really see anything, but because this is a float image, we have a whole bunch of information in there, so we can extract that in compositing. So that's something we want. What else do we want? Let's have a look. We don't really need volumetrics. Just have a look in there. Okay, so which ones do we have? Diffuse, we have that. Reflection, refraction, we don't have it yet. We can add it. GI, we have that, and specular. Okay, I guess we could add refraction for the YOLO. Refractions. And what we also want is a crypto map. And that one is over here. Crypto map. Right. And we want to set crypto mat to node name. So that's fine. So a crypto mat it's quite new. It has only been out for a couple of years. Previously, if you wanted to create masks inside of your render, what you would do is you would assign an object ID. So you would go in here and then say an object ID, and then you would make a puzzle mat. So go in here and then puzzle mat, and then you could say that I want my puzzle mat to be object IDs, and then in the red channel you would have, for example, this object, because I could put it one, and then another object would be in another one, and then you would set up your puzzle mats that way. Crypto mats are kind of nice because they just include every object in your render. So I'm going to load one in, and then I can just show you. So let's go in here. Let's go to rocks, tree, crypto. Okay, I'm gonna load my crypto mat. You can see it's blue. You might think, what can I do with all these weird blue tints? But there's a crypto mat thing. You need to install this separately. I'm going to show you how that works later. So what we can do is we move this selector, for example, somewhere here, and then type add. Oh, you can see it adds RNDR rocks explode. So it recognized, and that's the name that we called it, right? So, and then we can say mat only, and we extracted a mat from this thing. We could do this. We could include multiple things. We could also include our rocks. Takes a little bit. It's a little buggy sometimes, the thing, but yeah, you can see now we have our rocks. So super useful. I use them quite a lot. So yeah, I think that's all the passes. Let's talk a little bit about maybe some settings that we need to do in these passes. Let's just go through it. So the ZDepth, there's a couple of things that you could do. It's set to 32 bits per channel. This makes it very big, but because it's depth information, generally channels that you want to use that use like a lot of that have data, you generally make them 32 bits. I already explained what that is, but it generally means that you just have a lot more data to work with, which makes them a lot bigger. I am generally just put the camera near far to something like 50 or something. It depends on how deep your scene is. I just happen to know that this worked for this scene. Just we want the full depth. You could also tell it to normalize or center sample, but like I showed here, it's okay if it comes in super wide, because we have all this information, especially if you do it at 32 bits. You already, like you can see here down here in the bottom, is you have all this information which you don't see, but it's there. So something like that is just fine. Of course, like if you want to do more with the compositing later, there's other passes that you could include, which I didn't include, which I didn't end up using, at least in my render. So for example, there's you could, for example, like I included a whole bunch of position passes, normal passes. You could include all of those. I didn't end up using those, so I'm not gonna go into depth in this tutorial, but essentially world position pass, for example, or object position pass, is a vector pass that gives you the positions of your objects, and then you can do a whole bunch of cool compositing stuff with it. You have a normal pass, which will allow you to do some relighting inside of compositing. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do. I didn't end up using it in my comp, so I won't be talking about that. Maybe in a future tutorial where I'm actually using that, I might include it. But for now, not so much. You could alternatively use a UV pass, which you could use to sort of paint in more details in compositing if you want. I didn't use that in the composite, but I will show you how that works, because I did render it. I just didn't end up using it in my composite. So a UV pass, essentially what it is, it will store your UV inside a pass, and then you can use that in compositing to add, for example, additional details. So what I need to do is I'm actually using a proxy here, and I need to add UVs first because I don't have UVs here. So let's just do a flat projection, UV project. Let's just initialize it. Let's write this out as a new proxy. Oh, I need to disable proxy first on this thing. Okay, so now we should have UVs on this proxy. Okay, so, oh, and we need to, okay, I'm gonna say that I want to override my materials, because else I need to write those in the proxy as well. So you would do, I'm gonna do from obj node, and then it will just grab this material that's on here. Then in this material, what I can say is type AOV and then store color to AOV. So you have a whole bunch of stuff. If you want to store a vector, you do color to AOV. If you want to store an integer, you just put this one, and with a float, you do scalar. So then you put this one in here. Now you need to put it after your material. So after your material and then before it goes in service. And you type attribute. Just put the color inside of this thing, and we just type UV, and then we give it a name. So this will put this attribute into this thing, because Redshift doesn't have a default attribute for UVs. So this is just custom attribute. We call it UV in there. Then we go into our out, rain, or AOVs. We're gonna click the plus icon, go to custom, and say UV. And we could say how much info do we want? Do we want it float 30 to 60, 16-bit, because it's data probably 30, 32. So then if we now press, let me save, and let press render. So you can see we get now in this drop-down menu, we get all of our passes. So we can look at these passes individually. We just need to wait a little bit until it starts. Okay, let's just do a bucket render. And we can go through these passes now individually. So we can look at the diffuse, we can look at reflection, you look at GI, and our UV is not doing anything. So we need to check what's up with that. So let's just first see if it is an issue with our proxy override. Let's just highlight this thing and turn off proxy. Wait, okay, I know what's up. Cancel it. Okay, so we did a point attribute, but we need a vertex attribute because it's a UV, of course. So that's you can load either point or vertex attributes. You cannot use load primitives and stuff, but of course you can promote them, and then they will work. Okay, so now let's see. Now we can enable proxy again. Probably work. Okay, so it's rendering. Let's check UV. You can see we now have a purple pass for our ground. And again, you could include these UVs on everything. Like our rocks don't have UVs, so if you want that, add UVs on your rocks. I just put this in there because I want to show how these custom things work. So let's say we could use this in compositing if you wanted to sort of add additional details in compositing. Like let's say if we want to paint in some extra details somewhere. So just so you know, now let's talk a little bit more about cleaning this image up, because you see there's quite a bit of noise. So we need to clean this up, and that's where our AOVs come in, and why we did the AOVs first, because now we can go through our passes and then clean up the noise for each individual pass before we do our actual render.